Welcome back to Fundamentals of Action Research at Belhaven University as part of our Doctor of Education program. In this session, we're going to unpack the components of an action research project. This is fundamental to the plans you're going to be making related to your assigned action research project in the assigned partner school district that you've been given. So the objectives for this session are that you would be able to identify and explain the fundamental components. So we're going to go through the list in just a couple of minutes and be able to identify and explain what each of those are, because you're going to need to not just understand them, but you're going to need to be able to articulate them in writing in a prospectus at the end of this course. You're developing the action research plan or the project, and we call that the prospectus. Another objective is to be able to construct a tentative outline for your project that includes these fundamental components. So you need to know what they are, be able to explain them, and then construct a tentative outline for these components and how they are connected to your assigned problem, issue, or topic in a partner school district. I do want to add just, again, some biblical foundation to the course. So everything we do, we want to do it heartily as for the Lord. This is Colossians 3:23 and 24. So whatever you do your work heartily as for the Lord and not for people, knowing that it is from the Lord that you will receive the reward and the inheritance. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. So just remember, there's something bigger that we should be honoring in our work and what we do, including this action research project, and that's God. Okay? We will bless people in the process when we make him the point, the priority. And then Matthew 25:35 through 40. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you as a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it for one of the least of these brothers or sisters of mine, you did it for me. So why do I share that scripture in this session? So oftentimes, and you all will know this from your background in education and educational research, so many problems or issues we have are connected with poverty or marginalized populations in areas where there are limited resources. There are real problems. There are sick. There are people who've been imprisoned. There's high levels of poverty. There's literal hunger. And all of you know the connections between those dynamics and performance in education. And so when you are designing and implementing an action research project to address a problem or an issue, you really can honor God in this work. And so I encourage you to think about this. Truly, I say to you, to the extent you did it for one of the least of these brothers or sisters, you did it for me. And so keep in mind when you're you're constructing this action research project, that you really are connecting with the least of these brothers and sisters. It will be very likely, as you are doing your research, as you are interacting with the stakeholders and your partner school district, you come to the realization that you really are working to help better a situation for the least in that district or in those schools. And then Proverbs 19:17 says, one who is gracious to a poor person lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his good deed. So your investment in this action research project is more than just you getting your degree, whether you realize it or not. We know that's important. We know that that's the primary purpose. But when you're doing this, I just want you to be encouraged to know that it can impact this partner school district in a positive way, for the good. And that's really the objective. We've asked these partner school districts to identify for us. Belhaven didn't go to them with proposed problems or issues. We've asked the district, what is something you need investigated? What is a problem you would love to have an action plan for? And that is where the journey begins for you with this action research project pathway. So now let's look at those components. And these are in chronological order where you should be developing these components. And so this should not be unfamiliar to you. You will have read enough academic literature based on research at this point that these will all look familiar to you. The first is going to be the identification of the problem or the issue, and you're going to provide some background information and context. So we need to know what's going on, what's been happening, where it's happening, and the stakeholders involved. So identify the problem and issue as detailed and thoroughly as possible. And then you're going to bring in that connection to recent, relevant academic literature. It's going to be your responsibility, we talked about this in the first session, to really own what's in the current literature related to this problem or issue. So you've got to do the reading. And then you're going to develop research questions. What do we need to know about the problem or issue so that we can adequately study and develop an action plan to treat it or to hopefully help that situation improve? So what do we need to know? So you start with identifying the problem or the issue. You do the reading related to that problem and issue and summarize it all. Then you ask yourself, what do we need to know about this in order to develop an action step to treat the problem? And then once we know that, once we know what's not what we need to know, we can identify a methodology and the appropriate design to answer those questions. And then we collect data. And there's very likely, there's going to be an IRB, a human subjects protocol that has to get approved through our institutional review board. That's the IRB related to data collection. This is just a reminder, you cannot collect data without permission and approval from the institutional review board. And you also, because you're going to be interacting with data and collecting data, very likely collecting data within your partner school district, you are very likely going to have to complete a background check and go through the partner school district logistical requirements in order to access those data. So keep that in mind. And then once you've collected those data, then there is going to be analysis. So if it's quantitative data that you've collected, you're very likely going to be doing some type of statistical or quantitative analysis. If it's qualitative data, if you've interviewed people, conducted focus groups, if you have made observations, all of these are very likely going to be part of what you're doing in your action research project. It's probably going to involve some thematic analysis. And then you're going to have a plan or develop a plan of action. This is the point. The whole point of the action research project is for you to develop a plan to treat that problem or issue. And this is such an iterative part of the action research process. There's going to be continual reflection. Again, go back to what I mentioned in the first session, the aspect or the emphasis on continuous improvement. As you go through this and design the plan, and if you start implementing certain components, you want to reflect and improve as you go. So continuous improvement. And then you're going to have a component where you report and share the results at the end of your action research project. You are going to be making an oral presentation in the partner school district. The superintendent or the leadership team in that district, not Belhaven, will determine who the audience will be. So perhaps it'll be the Board of Education in that district. Maybe it'll be a parent group. Maybe it'll be professional development for all the teachers or administrators at the beginning of the year. We don't know that yet, but just know at the end you will be writing in APA format, of course, to those specifications. You will be writing up an action research report and sharing your results with the designated stakeholders in the partner school district. And it's a continuous cycle. If you make a recommendation for an action, is this something that can be replicated and do over? There'll be a piece of this where you'll make a recommendation for whether it should continue, the frequency, details such as that. And that is going to conclude this session. Just be sure to complete those reading assignments, participate in the discussion in Canvas on the course page, and the writing assignments assigned to this session. Look forward to seeing you in the next session.